I hate Anna. Just same dog. I got to get the dust off of this. Oh.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas, everybody. And welcome to another edition of Tackle Shop Live.
Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup.
Matthew Weimer. You got that right, brother.
Well,
what's up? Mike Hayer, Jeff Riddle, Scott Luckoff. How's everybody doing? Robert France, Paul Batters. What's up, Paul? Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. Jeff Santangelo. How are you doing, Jeff? Got you, buddy. You bet. Brock Pickett, Dave Richardson, Jeffrey Riddle, man. You better believe it, baby. Guess who is in the house? You better believe it. The one and only CG Corbin Gotwalt is in the house.
You know it, Mike.
Yeah, baby, and you're styling as usual.
Absolutely. Change one suit for another. You know what I mean?
That's right. Man, nice to see you there, Corbin.
You too, brother.
Jason Ocker, how are you? Andy Garrett, what's up, everybody? Keith Howard, Mark, how you doing? Kevin Geezy. All of our friends from over at TikTok, how are you guys doing? We don't forget you guys at all. We got some YouTubers in here. We got some Facebook Lives in here. Charlie Shamball, how you doing? Kyle Riggle. David Schottlemeyer, what do you say? WB Jones is in the house. You bet, man. We got a great crowd tonight. Thank you so much for stopping in. Merry Christmas to everybody. This is the holiday season. We are psyched up about it. We are ready to go with our Christmas show. I got to apologize. George and I are out of. We don't have this. We didn't get the spirit for today. We had some problems with our sweaters and our suits.
George has the same Christmas suit on he's had the last couple of years. Christmas sweater.
We're not out of the spirit. We're not out of the spirit.
Well, I frantically was looking for my ugly sweater because I knew right where it was, of course. And I went there and I looked and it wasn't there. And I was sick about it. So I had Caitlin go run all over Lancaster looking for stuff. And all she could find was mediums. And I said, all we need is double X mediums. You know what I mean? That's all we need. And, that's the way we roll. But anyway, we have a great show for you guys tonight. And, this is coming to the end of the year. This is our second to last show. Next week will be our last show. We're going to recap the year with some, some thoughts and some great moments that we had and reflect on what we learned for the year. And we're going to have some nice notes here and we're going to work on it. George and I, we're talking about it. So it's going to be a great end of the year show for next week. And, all you guys can stop in and see that. Now, as always, we have a few announcements. I just want to go over them one more time for the newbies in the house. Toyo. How are you doing, buddy? Man, good to see you're here from Waco, Texas. Thanks for stopping in.
I will guarantee you it is a lot warmer.
Yeah.
In Waco, Texas than it's going to be here tomorrow night.
I know, man. What about this weather?
I know,
Corbin. It's going from. Hey, look who's in the house! Santa's here. Look at this guy here. Santa's make a special stop. How you doing, Santa? All right.
I'm
I'm doing. He's getting ready for the big day, huh?
It's coming quick.
So is George, did you bring your coal with you for George?
That's too expensive.
Too expensive, too much coal for George. So there you have it. We have Santa in the house. I'll tell you right now, Santa, looking good this year, buddy. Looking real good. I'm old. Well, there we have it, man. We have Santa in the house. I told you it was going to be Christmas spirit here. And this is what we got right here. We got Santa. Santa is here, courtesy of Jeff Barley's sleigh ride, I guess, huh? All right. Yeah, he's out of here. Well, there you have it, guys. A special appearance from Santa. See, we do have the spirit here. So there you have it. There he is. Let me get out of the way here. There we go. There we go. Santa's here. You better believe it.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Oh, yeah. So that is how we roll around here. This is the way we roll. We have Santa Claus. We have it all here, and you can tell we've been good boys and girls because there you have it. We have Santa's here to tell us that we did a fantastic job this year.
Santa brought me a Stella, courtesy.
I'm getting there, Santa. I'm getting there. Next year, I'm having your job.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by, brother. Appreciate it. Man, I do. I appreciate it. So there we go, guys.
Merry Christmas, Santa.
Merry Christmas, Santa. Merry Christmas. There we go. All right. Now, like I said, we have a lot going on tonight, and Corbin is here, and we have and as always, we have a bunch of announcements. I want to let everybody know what we have going on. For all you guys that don't know, we put on several events in the early part of the year. Our first quarter is loaded with great events, all in the name of education, all in the name of learning something. So number one this year is Bass Fest. Bass Fest is January 13th and 14th here at the shop. We got a great lineup for everybody. Bill Lowen from Strike King and Lose is going to be here giving seminars for both days. Going to be real exciting. To have him here. He was here once before. Great seminar speaker. I'm sure he's going to be talking about a few things like jig fishing, maybe.
Oh, he's liable to go jig fishing. He's awesome with a bladed jig.
Bladed jig, yeah.
Shallow water guy.
Shallow water.
Square bill crankbait.
There you go. So you're going to get a lot of stuff from him.
Can't wait. The last time he was here, he filled the house.
Yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did. So Bill Lowen's going to be here. Great guy. Great fisherman. A good friend of SFT. And of course, GDP is going to be here. Our boy GDP fishing the Elite Series Tour. He's going to be here courtesy of SFT. He's flying in special, going to spend the weekend, and he's flying back because he is focused and ready to go, man. He is man, he's chomping at the bit. Plus, he has a brand new kid that's going to motivate the hell out of him.
You know what they call him, don't you?
What do you call that?
TDP.
All right. So Greg DePalma is going to be here doing seminars, talking some electronics, talking, whatever he talks about, which is all great stuff. Everybody loves his seminars. And from Megabass, courtesy of Megabass, we have Nick Kusvis from Canada.
By God, you got it right.
Yeah, he is a hardcore smallmouth guy, big water guy. But really just smallmouth fishing in general. We're going to pick his brain about smallmouth fishing, have him do some seminars on that. And that is going to be exciting for us for sure. And then courtesy of Z-Man, we have a couple guys here on Friday. Gray Buck is going to be here Friday only, but he's going to be here. Last year he was here. He tremendous. Everybody loved Gray Buck. We all love Gray Buck. Who doesn't like Gray Buck? You know what I'm saying, Corbin?
That's right.
I mean, he's a hammer. He's an absolute hammer.
Great Bucks Friday only. So
yeah,
make sure you get here on Friday because
absolutely.
I mean, his seminars are phenomenal.
We're going to work him out. He's going to do 2 of them. I mean, we're working him out. So, and then also Brian Mullaney from Z-Man is going to be here helping with the Z-Man products, pushing that kind of stuff also. So that is Bass Fest, January 13th and 14th. You do not want to miss this event. It is going to be great. It's always great. We
Start the year off right.
always pack the house. Now,
That's
for
right.
everybody that's saying, where the hell you do these seminars? We get a jumbo tent, 30 by 40 heated tent with a hard floor, seats. Man, you can get in there, take your jacket off. It's like you're sitting in Florida.
Well, we even have a couple vendors that spend a lot of time out there.
Yeah. Some of our vendors are going to be out there promoting their products for sure. But not only that,
talking fishing.
Yeah, but not only that, in the shop here is a bunch of guys that are going to be here to talk fishing. A bunch of representatives from all the different companies are going to be here talking fishing and baits and explaining what's going on. So it's like a big show that we put on here, and we're really proud of it. So make sure you stop by for that one. And then Smallmouth Saturday on February the 11th. Corbin's going to be here, headliner, doing seminars on river smallmouth fishing. And it's all about smallmouth fishing. It's all about, how we catch them, what we do to catch them, and very, very, very fun time to do that. So we got Corbin Gotwalt plus a bunch of guys, local guys, some regional guys are going to be here talking about different types of smallmouth fishing. You don't want to miss that. And then March the 9th through the 11th is our Cabin Fever sale. This is a great event. And right now we have Brian Schmidt coming. Everybody knows him. He is a hammer on the BASS Elite Series and every other series.
Multi-time elite winner.
Yeah, winner. Multi-elite winner. This guy is super hot. He's a good friend of this SFT. And he's going to make a run up for one.
I heard a
day.
rumor that they're thinking of changing the name of the Toyota series to the Brian Schmidt series.
I hear you, man.
Same with the Mississippi River.
Yeah, boy, he had a great year, and he's going to be here to talk about all his fishing techniques and how to do it, courtesy of Hayabusa and Rains Fishing. So there you have it. There are the events you do not want to miss. First quarter, put them on your calendar and get in here. As always. So next part of our show, we like to call Tackle Talk. Yeah. Tackle Talk time. This is a great part of our show. We highlight a couple of products and talk some tackle. We don't get too long on it, but it's all good, great information. George, what do you got for us this time around?
Well, in a holiday spirit, first I want to start off with a little Elf on the Shelf.
Elf on the Shelf.
You got Elf on the Shelf?
I don't get it, George. What is it?
Any guesses out there? Anybody coming in on that?
Yeah.
Huh? Little jig on the pig?
Little jig on the pig. Elf on the Shelf and jig on the pig.
Hey, it sounded a lot funnier in my mind.
Yeah,
Mike,
John Snook got it. Paul
applause.
Batters. Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What's that all about there, bro?
Well, I want to talk about, a jig. We're doing some jig fishing tonight as our topic. We're talking about some cold weather jig fishing. And, I love jig fishing and I'm addicted to jigs. And, we have a new one here at the shop that we want to share with you under Tackle Talk. Of course, we'll also probably talk about a little bit in jig fishing, but this is the Dirty Jigs Matt Herron flipping jig. And there's a couple things I really like about this jig.
First of all, that color is bad to bone.
Oh, that color is money.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things about the way this jig is constructed that I think makes it one of the most perfect jigs out there. So first of all, the hook. It's a short shank Gamakatsu. So it's a little bit shorter in the shank, but you'll notice you're not giving up gap. Okay. So you've got the proper gap, a little shorter shank gives you that little more compact, kind of like a mid-size.
Yeah.
You've got a sort of a hybrid jig head. It's kind of got a little bit of that Arky style but it's more centered. The weight is more centered on it. And it's got that 60-degree flat eye, which is so critical in, making that jig all terrain.
Yeah.
This jig is a wood and rock jig. Very multi-purpose jig. I mean, you can do virtually everything with this jig. It's the Matt Herron flipping jig, and it comes in a wide range of colors.
Yeah, I love the colors.
Beautiful. And it's got a tremendous bait keeper on it. A nice low profile wire bait keeper. It's got a nice long weed guard that allows you to customize your trim on that the way you like it.
Yeah.
So that's our first item from Dirty Jigs.
Got a little choked up there.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm going to fill a whole box with them.
Yeah, I figured that. I figured that, buddy. Yeah, I definitely figured that.
In jig fishing, the more times you set the hook successfully, the more confidence you build in that jig. But for me, it's that, and also being able to retrieve it through cover. There's so many different styles of jigs out there that when you're constantly getting snagged on wood with a jig that's like good on rock, but it's terrible on wood, or you got a jig that comes through wood good and it's constantly getting hung on rock, you can't have that.
Yeah.
It's a detriment to your fishing success. It kills your efficiency.
It's terrible.
And this jig does it all.
It's absolutely terrible when that happens. And just I like the short shank hook just for that reason too, George. It's not so long that it rolls over and catches the wood. I think that's going to be a really key to that thing.
It's not a compact jig. It's not a big jig. It's in between size.
It's the hook. It's the hook that's making a difference on that.
Well, yeah.
Cover.
The 60-degree flat eye is so important, and the shape of that head is so important. And that's why that jig comes through wood and rock so well.
Yeah.
Not all jigs can say that.
No.
Not all jigs can say that.
No, not at all.
So the other thing I have for you that I wanted to highlight from Dirty Jigs, it's kind of a Dirty Jigs theme, is the what they call the guppy head. Guppy head down.
Guppy head down. We got a guppy head down here.
2 more up.
So what's nice about the guppy head is a couple things. First of all, it's the perfect size for those small swim baits that we are always talking about.
Yeah.
There's hardly a show that goes by in any season of the year that we don't stress the importance of a small boot foot swim bait. We've talked these things to death. We fish them year round. If you follow this show, you've heard about them to the point where you're like, please don't talk about a boot foot swim bait again. Well, that's never going to happen. So the guppy head gives you a quality stout hook in the right size for, your 4-inch, 3.5 to 4.5 inch little slim profile, small boot foot heads. But the keeper, this style of keeper here is excellent at holding your trailer on. A lot of these swim baits, what makes them good is what makes them bad, and they become very fragile. This style of keeper is really good at maximizing the life of that bait. Plus, it works really well with not just traditional plastics, but it works really well with the Elastec type plastics. These rings really hold that well. Once you get an Elastec style, like let's say a Minnows from Z-Man on there, it's not coming off.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most overlooked things about this jig head, which is specifically a cold water technique from winter through pre-spawn, is what I like to call the Demiki rig, because I like to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, absolutely.
Demiki rigging a minnow style plastic such as a Zoom Fluke or a Super Fluke Junior, or whatever your favorite brand is.
Yeah.
We did a show on several different plastics that are well with that Demiki rig.
Yeah.
You can look it up. This head has the 90-degree eye that you have to have for Demiki rigging. Demiki rigging is a horizontal technique. So your bait is suspended like this. This is how you want the bait suspended in the water. And you need a 90-degree eye to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you got to be careful choosing your jig head for that. Okay, you don't want too heavy of a hook because it's a light line technique. You don't want too light of a hook because it's a big fish catcher, so it'll flex out on you. You want just the right hook, just the right length of hook. It's Demiki rigging's really heavy on 2.0 and 3.0 hooks.
Yeah.
And this bait really fits the bill for that. It's really well suited for this time of the year, but it's also as a swim bait head for the small swim baits. It's just a great choice. That's the Guppy head from Dirty Jigs. Comes in a bunch of colors, bunch of weights, to match your wind and your current and your depth and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that tonight. And then the third thing I wanted to highlight is also from Dirty Jigs. And I have that in my notes here. And it's the Matt Allen swim bait head. So this is kind of a swim bait only head, but it's got some great features. And I don't know that everybody's aware of them. First of all, the size range. So an 1/8 to 3/4.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Corbin likes some big hammer dogs.
Literally.
Don't be telling my secrets in my head.
You know what I'm saying?
Heads, Mikey.
Oh yeah.
Literally an 1/8.
No matter
to
what you
3/4.
Yeah, no matter what you want to throw,
and
you're covered.
The little 1/8 and 3/16 and 1/4, the hook size is appropriate for a small boot foot.
Yeah.
But when you start getting into a 5-inch or 5 3/4-inch boot foot,
yeah, you need a little horsepower.
4.8,
yeah,
5-inch, 5 3/4 on a bigger head. Let's say you're summertime ledge fishing. You need a 3/4-ounce head on that big swim bait.
Yep.
Or let's say you're swimming a big 4.8 Kitech or a 4.8, rhythm wave from Jackal, for whatever. You need that hook to be sized up because a lot of that bulk of that bait's going to take up that gap. Not only that, you need a good keeper. Okay, so we have that wire keeper, plus we have this conical keeper here. And pay attention to this conical keeper because I have another little tidbit for you on that. A, it holds plastic real well. B, it holds Elastec really well. But it also is a keeper for a skirt. So you can slide up onto your swim bait head, skirt of your choice, or maybe your custom make.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You can trim that skirt, to a finesse type trim, put a swim bait on it, and now you have that skirt swim bait combination. So this is the Matt Allen swim bait head. And the Matt Allen swim bait head and the Guppy head are coming in at $6.99 a pack, which is not bad for a premium head. And the Matt Heron jig is coming at you at $5.49 a piece, which is right in line with a premium flip jig. And the other thing about these baits, they're all 100% USA made by Nichols. Nichols Lures Company, which makes some of the highest quality wire and lead baits in the world, is making these in the US of A. Okay, so good stuff. And that's your Tackle Talk segment for tonight, Mike.
There you have it. Absolutely. Good information there, George. Great products. You can find all these products on our website at sfttackle.com. You can check them out on there, read a little bit more about them, see some really good pictures of them, and really kind of analyze and pick up a couple of those. One question there was on there was, is that Guppy head just a smallmouth setup for Demiki rigging? But
no,
it's not. It's
that hook will handle a 6-pound largemouth.
Yeah, it will. And
or a 6-pound smallmouth.
That technique itself is not just a smallmouth technique. It works great for smallmouth, but man, spotted bass that school up and suspend a lot. It's a great spotted bass technique. And then of course, when you have the largemouth that are staging, getting ready to come up, and they're suspending out off the points.
Well,
it's a great suspending bait.
And forward facing sonar. I mean, that's a good
Yeah.
for that too.
Well,
Yeah,
when
just
you're
throwing a little swim bait at that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly with when you're Demiki rigging, you're dealing with, fish in reservoirs that are hovering underneath and roaming with schools of bait. So these fish are, they're pelagic. They're not relating to cover as much as they are to the bait, which means you might be in 80 foot of water and these fish might be in the 25-foot range, for example. So you need a bait that you can get right on top of them. You're straight up and down, but you're suspended.
Yeah.
And that Demiki rig with that horizontal attitude, you can also kind of pendulum it. So you can cast it out to those fish and let it pendulum down through them. Okay. And still get that right attitude. But it's a spinning rod game. It's a lighter line game. You can't have big, heavy duty hooks and heads. You may need to go to a heavier head.
Yeah.
Because of depth and wind. But, it's deadly on cold water, suspended, schooled fish.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
And you need the right head for it. And that head is an example.
Another question we had that we're going to get to here in just a few minutes, and I'm not going to forget your question, is organization of jigs. And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. And also here we have Elliot Davis asked if we carry cash and rods. We absolutely do. We have a nice selection of cash and rods here. And the Spro Chad Shad. Any word on that yet, George?
I mean, we were like
one of the first to be on the list.
We got in on it as soon as as soon as you could possibly get them ordered. So as soon as they're released by Spro, they'll be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're carrying, of course, all of them, and we have large quantities coming in.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a cool bait, man. We met that guy who designed it, and real excited about that swim bait.
Got a great trivia question for you.
What's that?
Oh, geez.
Who's the Chad Shad named after?
Corbin?
George? I mean, Chad Morgan Taylor.
I know what it is because
you can't answer. You're
I had gotten the answer before.
Yeah, you're out.
Does anybody know what it's?
I don't know if anybody's going to chime in with an answer on this or not.
Let's give it a second here. And
first correct answer gets Nick's ugly sweater.
Make sure you're reading them as they come up here.
Deal.
Look, Nick Kosh Cometer. Look what he said. He said Chad.
Chad Johnson.
Chad. All right.
Ocho Cinco.
Ocho Cinco. I got it.
Well, can we give the answer?
Ocho Cinco. Yeah. Does anybody get it?
No.
Okay.
They're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Bassmaster 2K of PA got it.
Designer's brother. Oh, the brother. Yeah. He did get it, but he didn't get the name.
No. Well,
Yeah.
I bet you can guess the first name.
Yeah. Chad. Oh,
Don't give away the answer.
It's a great story. It really
Well, this
is.
contest went to hell. Nobody can follow simple instructions.
Hey, he can still have the sweater.
Well, we'll send Bassmaster 2K. Make sure you get your information to us, and we'll send you the sweater. It's a classic. Don't hog the eggnog.
Exactly.
We're not going to be able to send it to you until the holidays are over because cameraman Nick's got quite the party circuit over the holiday season.
Yeah, I'll be wearing it every day here till Christmas Day.
Same with my suit, dude.
Same with your suit, right?
Yeah. Pick it up off the floor. It's already pressed and ready.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the ones you just go and it's ready to go.
Don't be telling everybody my strategy.
real quick, George mentioned a really cool thing about the Demiki rig, the pendulum deal.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see that work, if you remember Jeff Gustafson up at the South Dakota or North Dakota or both, I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
But that's what he was doing up there.
Oh yeah.
He was, throwing it out there and letting it pendulum down, just like you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, he won a Elite Series tournament.
Yeah.
Jimmy Riggin.
Yeah. What lake was that? That
In
was
Tennessee,
in
wasn't it?
Tennessee, right?
I
Yeah.
was going to do a trivia contest on it, but that's been killed now too.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys,
All right. George, I got a trivia question for you.
I'm going to try not to answer it until it's said.
Oh, say less.
Say
So,
less.
who's the person that just created their own bass boat?
Well, that's a tough one. Let me think. I'm
I'm not
me
talking about
think.
Now, wait,
I'm
let
not
it roll
talking about
here.
De Palma's kayak either.
Yeah, right.
If no one gets this, we're going off the air and closing this program down.
Yeah, because that's all you've seen.
Because that's a tough question.
I know.
You know, on social media for the last
There we go.
J-Wheels.
Paul Batters.
You
well
got,
done.
you got it, Paul.
Well done.
That's good because I didn't want to shut the show off right away.
Paul,
Yeah.
you won Corbin's Christmas suit as your prize.
Exactly. Hey, did you guys see Steve-O? Steve-O's now rocking a Christmas suit too. I saw it on social media and I was like, bro, couple years late, man.
Yeah,
Couple years late.
that's right.
But better late than never.
That's right. You're yeah, Jacob Wheeler. You're right. It's a Hydra Sport. Well, it's I don't know what it is. It's what's the name of the company?
It's like a Viking yacht.
Well,
Yeah.
Hydra Sports turned into a company that makes HCB yachts, which
Yeah.
are basically badass, big time offshore center consoles that they put like
40 footers, 45 footers.
57 is their signature.
Oh, geez.
57 footer, and they'll run like quad 600 Mercs on it.
So, George, you're telling me this boat sounds like it's really going to be affordable for everybody.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the over under? What are we gonna bet? What's the retail on it? 140.
I'm telling you this
140,
much.
yeah.
It won't be less than the market average.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Wheeler has to get his cut out of it too, so that jacks it up a $10,000 bill. All right.
It's all good. It's all good.
So I want to thank a couple people tonight for this show. And one of them is Charlie Enoch. Tonight he brought us the Crown Royal XO that George and I are sipping on here. It's one of their specialty Crown Royals that we're going to sip on, and we're also going to check this out right here. Monkey Shoulder, the original blend of malted Scotch whiskey. And this is from our own white stallion, Brian Weimer, who works here at the shop. He brought us that for a Christmas present. So we're going to
The Stallion.
the stallion.
Isn't that what Joey had that time?
No,
The Stallion.
No.
Shoulder.
no, it wasn't that. No.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
Here's cheers to the bearers of brown liquid.
absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you guys as well. Boy, that's good stuff. And also I want to say thank you to who's the fellow that brings us all the
Be more specific if you could.
Beer.
yeah, the beer in all the time up there.
You mean Matthew Weimer?
Matthew Weimer. I'm sorry.
can you
I'm
forget
sorry,
Matthew
Matthew.
Weimer?
I am sorry, Matthew. I know he's watching. I saw his and I said hi to him and I forgot it. It just slipped I took a sip of this and it just
Yeah, he's like an A1 from day one.
it was gone. Yeah. Well, he brought us the new Mad Elf beer that we're not going to drink tonight. We're going to save it for the holidays. Thank you very much for that. And I also
Mad Elf now.
And I also want to say that the Miller Lights tonight are from our own cameraman Nick.
Cameraman Nick.
Thank you, cameraman Nick. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then we have many backups in the refrigerator from our own Skeeter Steve.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Before the show gets any farther,
Yeah.
I'm going to need to call Uber.
And
Well-
Skeeter Steve hooked George and I up also for Christmas gifts. So thank you, Skeeter Steve, also.
He's just getting prepared for the Colts game this weekend.
Yeah, right.
he had to replenish after last Saturday.
Oh Lord, that was we watched that game with him here on Saturday. And by the way, Saturday for Daiwa Saturday was fantastic. You guys really showed up. We had a great time, lots of laughs, seen a lot of people we haven't seen in a long time, had a great sale day, and everybody walked out of here with a ton of stuff. And we gave away a Daiwa Elite Series cranking rod for that event, and which was awesome. Thank you, Daiwa, for supporting that sale. We appreciate that very much.
That was nice.
It was nice. It was a great time.
It was a fun day.
And what was cool about it was, it brought in a lot of people we haven't seen in a while. So thank you guys so much for stopping in.
Kyle Regal won that. Hey, Kyle.
Kyle, yes.
By the way, Kyle, you're banned from
Yeah.
all contests at SFT for exactly 1 year because you're about the luckiest son of a gun I
He
ever met
is,
in my
man.
life.
I
Yeah.
mean, we had how many tickets in there? There was a ton of tickets in there, Nick. There was a ton of tickets in there.
I couldn't believe how many.
Yeah, but
tickets
you know what?
in your satchel.
And this guy just wins everything.
Check this out. Last year at Bass Fest, we gave out a keep them coming, he says.
Yeah.
We gave out a Sims Challenger rain suit, courtesy of Sims.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I mean, there was a lot of people that were buying Sims and getting involved in the drawing and getting in the spirit of the 2-day deal.
Yeah.
And of course, Kyle
Yeah.
bought himself some nice Sims gear.
Yeah.
Got in the drawing.
Bingo.
Sure enough, he won. He won the Sims suit. And then this past
Insulated
Saturday,
suit. Yeah.
yeah, this
So-
past Saturday we had the
Well, we have a cutoff on the amount, so it's you're there. You can't have
Yeah.
any more.
Yeah, this past Saturday, of course, we had the Daiwa Day, and we had a wonderful Tatula Elite finesse crankbait rod that we were giving out, and there was a ton of people here. There was a bunch of tickets.
There was a lot of tickets in there,
and sure enough,
and Corbin picked it.
Kyle knocks it out of the park.
We didn't have anything to do with it. He reaches in there.
I got you, Kyle. I got you.
All right.
Hey,
Kyle's the new guy.
Somehow we need to monetize Kyle. We need to go to like a casino,
Yeah.
or we need to go buy like
A
some
bunch of lottery
$50
tickets.
scratch offs or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember the guy that used to win all the big prizes every single year at Cabin Fever?
Yeah.
Well, good things must come to an end, and Kyle has officially taken that
Okay.
title. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey,
Very,
George,
very good.
George. So speaking of casino, we had a member of the Wolf Pack of Hangover movie.
We did.
In that video. So a trivia question would be, what was the name of the member that Mike was?
Yeah.
Yeah, his stage name
Yeah.
Stage name.
in the movie.
I don't even know. They just dressed me up.
You looked the part.
I did.
I
tell
would
you
just like
what.
to say this. We did not dress you up, Mike. You volunteered and dressed yourself up.
I don't think so, man. You guys
And-
were on me like all day long. Hey,
No.
well, Jason Shea was all over top of me.
no.
Oh, you know who you look like in that? We're gonna definitely do that. So thank
It was
everybody.
a fun time.
Thanks
time.
everybody for the Christmas
Great
gifts.
time.
We always appreciate it. Plus everybody else that drops some stuff off here. We really appreciate it. Very, very much. It doesn't go unnoticed. Let's move on here. We're going to get to the topic of choice right now, which is jig fishing. And we love talking jig fishing.
Oh my. Yeah.
So, jig fishing. The funny thing about jig fishing is that so many people don't have confidence in it. They pick it up, they look at this thing, they're like, man, this thing doesn't get bite. I just don't get bit on this thing. But if you just pay attention to any tournament circuit at any time of the year, you will find that the jig is a major player in all fishing, tournament fishing. Winter, spring, summertime, dock fishing, trees, and it's another one of those baits that is you got to have the confidence in to stick with it. You know what I mean, Cameron and Nick?
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where if you don't have confidence in it, you're going to pitch it in a tree 2 or 3 times, and you're going to say, man, if I only had my shaky head worm, I'd catch him out of that tree. And you go to that shaky head worm and you catch some fish out of it. But if you look at some of these really big fish that are caught, these big fish love a jig.
Yes.
You know
Big
what I
fish
mean?
eat
It's a
jigs.
big fish catching machine. And the bait itself is It's simple to fish. You fish it just like you do any other bait that you throw, but it allows you to get into places that you really can't, or you don't normally want to get into because your gear's too light, or you hang up a lot, or once you get the fish on, you can't get them out of there. This is a bait where you can rig heavy, you can rig big, and you can get them in there, get into that cover, and yank their lips off. So it gives you an opportunity to have another presentation. And all I'm saying about this is this is a technique and a bait that you have to have in your box, and you have to throw it. And you must throw it long enough to catch a couple fish on it to build that confidence. And this will definitely catch some big giant fish for you.
I think the thing to understand about jig fishing is what that jig, why it catches so many fish that are big, and it's what that jig represents. That jig represents the forage that big fish eat. Bluegill,
Crayfish,
perch, that forage base that those big fish eat. So you have that bait that represents those fish, that bait that those fish eat, which is why it gets bit by so many big fish. Okay. The second thing is you can put this bait into every little nook and cranny, every type of cover. Okay, let's look at this. It skips well. It's very weedless. You can bring it through wood, grass, rock. You get into man-made cover. You get into wire and concrete and rubble and old shipwrecks, and it just. The jig is so well suited for putting it in places where big fish are.
That's right.
I don't know about you, Corbin. You and I fish together a ton.
Yeah.
And we try to target big fish. It seems like we catch most of our big fish on isolated cover.
Yeah.
Like we catch quality fish out of a school.
That's right.
But when we crack that big bag, pushing 5 smallie or that 6+ largemouth.
That's right.
It's an isolated piece of cover
or a little ditch away from everything else.
Yeah.
It's something.
Not always. Mike and I were on a couple fall bites a couple years ago where, we were catching, it would be like 4-pounder, 4-pounder, 12-incher, 12-incher, 4-pounder. That was a school type situation that just happened to have, I would say, probably not the average situation. But
no.
If you talk about what the jig excels in, putting it in those tight spots, right? The isolated cover, right?
Absolutely.
Places that big fish live.
Absolutely. And I just want to mention Oliver Nyes here. Hi, Oliver. How you doing? And he has a good little point here. They're inexpensive. You can throw them in this cover and not be scared to fish it and get it into that stuff. And that's a big key. So Oliver, thanks for that little comment, because that does make sense. It isn't a super expensive bait. You can throw it in there and you can fish it in the cover. There's a lot of jigs out there that you can throw.
If you take this Matt Herron jig that we've been talking about tonight, $5.50, put a 75-cent trailer on there, $1 trailer on there, 6.5, and it's pretty darn effective, weedless.
Well, it's weedless.
If you do break it off,
you're not losing a bunch of them.
It's not like you lost your Chad shad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
You start dropping some Chad shads out in the main river and you got an issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Oliver also wants to know if you're wearing shorts on there, Corbin.
Nope. But I got my extra tufts in my pants on, Oliver. Working on my high kick just for you when you come back to the East Coast, brother.
Yeah, baby.
Christmas pants dreams, brother. Christmas pants dreams. I got it right here. We're trending. Yep. East Coast, baby. East Coast. No, but seriously, Oliver, when are you coming back so we can fish for some smallmouth on the main river?
Yeah. We need to have him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, done that brutal. Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, George, let's talk real quick about styles of jigs that we throw. Real quick.
I thought you'd never ask. Well, we're in the cold months now, obviously. We have a bomb cyclone coming, in case you haven't been paying attention.
For real.
So, I might not be fishing a jig on the river this weekend, but this time of year, I like that more compact, anything from a finesse to, as we discussed, this type of, mid-size Matt Herron type jig. So, from the finesse jig, let's say we'll just pull this finesse jig out here real quick. Maybe.
You can rip them because I need them. They're all my jigs anyway.
Rip it and rip it. So, the finesse jig on one end of the spectrum, and I'd like you to notice this is a ball style finesse cut skirt, small profile, lighter wire hook. That is kind of the definition of what we're talking about in the finesse jig. Now, I know Corbin's going to talk about a little bit about what would be like a micro jig, okay? So this is the kind of stuff typically for your cold weather, getting into the cover. Remember our famous saying in the winter, that warming, that 3-day trend.
Yeah.
When those fish move up, they want to get their bellies in the mud. They want to get their bellies in the mud. That mud's gathering heat. A lot of times in the winter months, if you pay attention to those first couple fish you catch, look at their bellies, and their scales will be outlined in mud because they're literally laying in the mud, absorbing that heat. They're warming themselves. Yes, they are cold-blooded, but their metabolism rises with that heat. So a couple degrees, okay? So that's kind of what we're talking about for, the definition of finesse and then your mid-size. Now, on the other hand, you're going to have like a full-size jig, which is going to be, right here.
Flipping jig.
Okay. And you're going to have, the bigger hook.
To handle a big trailer.
Going to have the bigger, longer shank, bigger hook. Overall profile is bulkier skirt, usually a 60-strand skirt. Okay. You're usually fishing, 3/8, half, 3/4 weights. Everything's a little bigger. So, finesse, mid-size, flipping, and then there's some outliers like the micro jig that Corbin's going to talk about later. But they all share in common, getting down, dragging, putting that bait right in front of that fish in that form. And that's why they're so successful. Now, there is a ton of tweaks that we're going to talk about later. Trailer selection. We're going to talk about, why one trailer works so much better than the other. But that's kind of to answer your question, Mike, the range of jigs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, you can match the hatch, match the conditions with any jig. And even in those cold water conditions, what you got to understand is even if you're fishing a finesse jig, it's a power jig. It's a bigger profile for that type of water. And, you may not get like a bite every 5 minutes, but you're going to get a bite, and it's going to be a good bite, and it's a good profile to put out there, even in the colder time of years. So let's get into trailers, George. Let's talk some trailers. Or let's talk some setups.
You want to talk about boat trailers?
No,
I got one of the worst boat trailers on the face of the earth.
I love my boat trailer.
You're such a grandma. You're such a grandma, buddy.
No, I'm just busting your balls. I have a boat trailer that I'm trying to break in half by hitting. I literally line up on potholes when I'm on my way home.
Yeah, you
God.
got to go into the story on that.
My best case scenario is Pennsylvania is most of you guys hate Pennsylvania's roads. I love them because they are allowing the mother of all potholes to form up.
Oh my God.
Geez.
And at 65 or 70, I can get both wheels of the axle in that dip. And she's going to bust one of these days, and I'm going to get a new one. But that's another story. That's not the kind of trailers we're talking about.
No, it's not. But
let's not digress.
Yeah, let's not digress into that. I can't believe he hounds me about this trailer, Nick.
Now, do you remember
constantly
when we started out with our Elf on the Shelf? For those of you who tuned in late, this is a Christmas themed program. Elf on the Shelf. Anybody new can guess what we have here? And it ties in with our trailer conversation.
Thank you, Oliver.
We have Jig on the Pig. Right? I know it's funny.
Jig on the Pig, baby. Elf on the Shelf. Elf on the Shelf, Jig on the Pig. I love it.
I'm gonna give you guys all a second to catch your breath. You know.
Yeah, they are.
I just want to say, like, to the viewers, this is actually I couldn't wait for you guys to start talking about the trailers.
Yeah.
Because you just named 3 different kinds of jigs.
Yeah.
And
there's a million trailers.
This is where a lot of jig anglers differ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to see what Corbin's view, George, and your view is.
Well, cold weather, back in the day, we fished pork. I mean, I go back to when there was no plastic chunk that was shaped like pork. Zoom.
They were the first one to copy.
Somebody at Zoom should have got a medal, and I'm sure it was Eddie Chambers.
Yeah,
because he's a genius.
He is a genius.
Was a genius.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Well, he still is in my mind. I mean,
listen,
he's an absolute genius.
The man copied the pork chunk and made it out of plastic. Now, the pork people weren't happy.
Yeah.
Because the tiny chunk, the small chunk, and the large chunk, which represented the 101, the number 11, and the number 1, are killer. Those chunks are killer, arguably equally effective to pork. But there is a time and a place where pork shines. And
really shines in cold water, George.
That's when it really shines.
Really shines in the colder water. Now, it doesn't have to be freezing cold water. Your 50s.
Depends where you live.
Absolutely. Your 50s for the down south guys, a 50, 52, 54, 56, and then up into that 40s, and then even down into those mid high 30s. You can absolutely jack them on that.
You can.
So huddle up and focus. Focus.
Focus, Nick.
Cold water. We are putting on our Mount Rushmore of jig trailers the Uncle Josh pork chunk.
Yep.
Okay?
Mount Rushmore of
jig trailers for cold water. Corbin, what would our next one be?
Well,
in 1,000 words or less.
Oh, that's right.
Remember I said focus?
Oh, I'm focused.
Remember I said focus?
I'm focused. But on a jig like that, okay.
On a cold weather jig.
Yeah. Not the micro jig and all that other stuff. I mean, you can't help but look at, I'm going to just say,
just pick one.
A sweet beaver style bait, something that doesn't have as much action.
Love it.
Something like the TRD bugs.
Love it.
Smalley beaver.
Love it.
Even a sweet beaver if you're on a bigger size jig. Just something like that because it's capable. You can drag it. Not too much action. It almost kind of looks like a stingray grub type.
Good profile.
Good profile. And it's not like the rage crawl. It's going flippity floppity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Less of that.
Yep. Less of this and more of this.
Mike,
whoa! I'm only at 567.
No, you're at 990.
No, go ahead, bro.
Nope, you're at
go
997. Cut off.
He's got one. Go ahead, Corbin. Go ahead.
George.
That's it.
George, I got a question for you, though. Some people have never used an Uncle Josh pork before. What is the proper way to put it on? Front or back?
On the grill. Take it out. And
you are opening up a can of controversy. Now, in my world, plastic and pork only through the fat side. The hook will always go through the fat side. Now, immediately, I know, here we go.
Yeah.
But that's not how.
Yeah.
Denny
You know,
Brower did
that's
it.
not how, well, there's not a wrong way to do it. I'm a firm believer in punching the hook through the fat side of the pork. So you're going to be
fat side down
with your jig up. You're going to be skin up, fat side down, hook
fat
through
side
it.
down.
I would be willing to venture a guess the majority of the old school jig guys that were fishing pork rigged it that way. Now, the plastic guys, you're going to get both sides. Some people say that the jig will skip better with the flat side down, right? To each his own on that, but that's my answer to you.
Yeah. I yield my time to Corbin on finishing up his statement.
Nope.
Come on, Corbin.
Oh, I thought you did.
You got a
finish,
Max
Corbin.
Scent. I know you got a Max Scent
I mean,
story over there.
Well, yeah. You got see. The other thing is, I know George is talking about the pork chunk. I talked about the sweet beaver, but you got to talk about the regular super chunk style, or now the Max Scent style, or even the Z-Man bat wings, something like that, where you can kind of let that bait go. And, with the Z-Man, it'll flutter up when you're letting it sit there and kind of get some of that bite out of it. But just a simple chunk trailer, same thing, not a whole lot of action, not as much as, not a lot of this, more of this.
Yeah.
But again, that's a style bait that I like to use as well. Not a pack of chunk, not a rage crawl.
Yeah.
Not a rage chunk, but something that has a little bit less action.
Well, I agree with the action part. I agree with all that. But
in cold water.
And you're in cold water and you're in that slower bite type of thing. My big push, and Corbin, I got to thank Corbin for this because he definitely pushed me over the edge on this.
Trailers now.
Huh? I know. I don't care what kind of trailer you throw.
Okay.
But the important thing with trailers, if you go plastic, okay, if you use regular plastic that's just salted or a Z-Man style plastic or anything like that, you have to go scent.
You have to.
Okay. And I think that's why the chunk, the pork rind trailers work so well, because they're soft. When a fish grabs them, it has that salty kind of thing, but it's soft in their mouth. When you got plastic, you don't really have all that. You got to have something to get those fish to bite the bait and then to hold on to it. And that is scent. It's so critical in that cold water presentation to go with some kind of scent. We like the smelly jelly style scents in the crawfish, anise, and a garlic style. There's a crayfish one that's really good. A lot of guys like. I don't want to start a big controversy on it, but these are the two that we kind of throw a lot of, but really the crawfish anise flavor. But that allows that bait to be even more, biteable, biteable for that fish to kind of commit to it, because that's really what you're doing. You're trying to get that fish to commit. So number one, you don't want a lot of action, which I agree with 100%. And number two, you have to have some kind of scent built into it in your whatever jig presentation you're doing. Now, that's the other reason why I like the scented plastics, Max Scent plastic, that kind of stuff, because it gives you the
Max Scent ain't no joke.
It's not a joke, and when you get into that scented plastics, you're doing the same thing as scent. You're drawing that fish. When he grabs it, he's more apt to, because you know what, Corbin, what's the bite like in the cold water?
Weight, mush.
Yeah. So it's a very undetectable type of bite.
Yeah. It's not like you make a cast and they start swimming off with it. It's not,
right.
You get a bite on a dock, it might just feel weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need those fish to hold on to it and trick their brain. Let's not forget we're fishing. So you're tricking those fish into biting your bait, and you got to trick their brain into holding on to it for just a little bit longer so you can detect that and get that hook set. So Max Scent style baits, pork rinds that are very soft and full of salt and full of flavor and all that kind of stuff is getting pushed off into the water. Very, very critical in your selection of trailers. If you don't have that scent built into it, make sure you put it into that. But I agree with George, and I
In
agree
the cold water.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, in the
I
cold,
love it.
in the cold water. But we kind of morphed into fishing scent all the time. Now because we've seen how effective it is. But even what George was saying and Corbin was saying, that real subtle movement in that colder water to me is the deal. And then you just match the size to the bait you're throwing.
Yeah.
The jig you're throwing.
Yeah, that's all good stuff there. There is a tip that I'd like to pass along.
Yeah.
So on the chunk style baits, the whether you're fishing pork or a plastic chunk style bait, if you're not threading them onto your hook shank. So let me grab a bait here and I'll show you what I mean. So this is obviously not a chunk, but it's just for demonstration purposes. The chunk style bait, there's two ways to rig them. There's rigging them on this style, which is just punching them through, which is how you would do a pork.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's threading them on.
Which you got to be like a freaking
so they're
master to do.
So they're threaded onto your hook.
Yep.
When you're punching that plastic chunk or the pork chunk, which is what
you're not threading a pork chunk.
No, that's what I said first. I said that first.
You did
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah.
Say it again.
So the key here
Say less.
is you need a spacer. So you're going to take a worm style bait and you're going to put it on your hook shank first. Okay. So you need about that much of a worm. You're going to thread this on here. And then when you put your chunk style bait on here, it can't slide up the hook. What'll happen sometimes, what happened in the old pork world, is sometimes that bait would slide up the shank of the hook a lot, but it would pivot around and block that hook on the hook set.
Yeah.
So it adds.
That's a great tip. That's something we do all the time with those types of baits when you're punching.
With the chunk style.
Yeah.
So it adds a little body. You can use a max scent, general for some scent. You can use a different color for some color.
Right.
But the primary thing is fill up that space to prevent that chunk from riding up the hook and having them pivot around and block that hook. Real important when you're punching. Now, if you're threading a plastic chunk on or you're to do.
George, I got to ask you.
Yeah,
We're talking cold water jigs, right?
we are.
I'm surprised this topic hasn't come up by any of our viewers. Silicone or rubber, I like throwing a mop jig in the cold water too. And I know that there's a lot of talk about the rubber and the cold water, more action. I mean, tell me your thoughts on that. Cause I definitely know.
And you
it
can,
works.
and you
It
can,
works.
one of my favorite, where I live in this part of the world, this time of the year, we're fishing in, upper 30 to low 40 degree water. And I don't like that giant profile of a mop jig, but I'm really fond of Greenfish Tackle, itty bitty finesse jig. And they tie that jig with a mixture of rubber and silicone. And that rubber has some
Breathability, maybe?
yeah, some chunkiness to it, some
Movement.
to it.
Absolutely.
It's not a super popular jig dressing anymore because of the availability. Of course, it never really
and the color selection and the color selection.
exactly. It never really,
Yeah.
it was like black
What is it like?
Brown
three or four colors.
or green.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Blue.
Yeah.
if you
blue, right?
check out the Greenfish Tackle jigs, they're famous for their use of the living rubber. And then when you get into that pre-spawn, more of that pre-spawn, right ahead of the spawn time frame through the spawn is when that mop jig plays. And you'll notice a company like Buckeye, who invented that mop. Well, I shouldn't say they invented it. They are the face of the mop jig. You know, that really, that's a player in the pre-spawn. I mean, big fish bait. Yep. Big fish bait. And, you know, the colors are, you know, brown and black, brown and green, black and blue, black. And that's a great material, but it has some limitations.
That's right.
You know, it has some limitations. Greenfish uses it in their itty bitty finesse jig, which is an amazing finesse jig. You've heard us talk about that thing forever and ever and ever. And they use it in some of their other jigs where they'll tie, you know, some of those strands in with some silicone to get the right color. But yeah, that's living rubber and cold water go together real well.
And I like, so speaking of that, specifically with scents on jigs, the rubber, like if you put a lot of scent on a jig, like you put smelly jelly on the skirt, with silicone can get all kind of like not gummy, but like stuck together. Whereas that rubber still moves. It still holds a scent, but it doesn't pack up as much.
The problem is you put scent on your jig like you put that product in your hair, man. I mean, you're going for that.
Either way, bro, you're getting the net, so it don't matter to me, bro. If I'm
Right
flipping
on.
a jig and I'm setting a steel, bro, I mean, listen.
There's too much product, baby. Too much product.
Listen, man. I mean, you know, 5 pounder is 5 pounder, George. I mean, I'm
That's
just
true.
saying, bro.
All right. So one of the things that people get really, really confused on with jigs is out of the bag, it depends on the jig, but out of the bag, some of them, you know, a lot of these manufacturers build these jigs so that you can trim them the way you like. And you can customize a jig the way you like. George had mentioned it tonight. Corbin had mentioned it tonight. So what I want to do right now is I want to trim a jig to the way with that George and I fish it, and show you guys what we do and how it affects the jig when you trim it. You know, when you trim the jig, what it actually does to the jig and how it makes it come alive. But some of the stuff is it's long at the top, and they just make it out of the package so that they're made to be trimmed. You know, they're absolutely made to be trimmed.
But a question for you, are you trimming it differently depending on if you're casting a jig, flipping a jig, pitching it to a dock? Or is it pretty much...
We kind of fish our jigs all the same, you know, because we trim it for the maximum, you know, cover, keeping us out of the cover. So we always trim them, because once you trim a jig, it's trimmed. So you don't want to trim it like, okay, I'm just fishing this, and so I could trim it a little shorter. You could, and George is going to show you here. It's a really happy medium there. But what the rest of the trimming process brings this bait to alive, number one, and number two, it allows your trailer to do what it's supposed to do. Because I'm telling you right now, if you get one strand of silicone or rubber on a close to a leg, it's done in the water. It doesn't move.
That's right.
So you got to be really careful how you trim. So George, go ahead and trim a jig for us.
Yeah. So depending on the style of jig, I'm going to trim it similar, maybe a little different, on a true finesse jig, but basically 95% of the time. So here's our before.
Yeah, this is important.
This is that Matt Heron jig.
Get everybody to get a good look at that over here,
You
George, on TikTok too. So
and by no means are we saying that this is not going to catch fish out of the package.
No, it will.
All we're doing is just tuning up the race car.
Vroom, vroom.
So, first step is we're going to kind of separate this jig skirt. All right, so what I want, you know, from the tie point, I want the top half of the skirt separated from the bottom half of the skirt. So that's how you do that. Okay? So now we have You can see the tie point right there. Okay, so this is the front half, back half. Most of the work is going to be done on the front half, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to hold it like that. Now, what I do is about that first joint on my thumb, I put the eye of the hook right there. Okay? Roughly. And then I put my index finger like that. All that's getting a haircut. Now, what's going to happen here is I'm shortening these strands down. I'm going to make them have a little more springiness. That's a term.
Gonna make them come alive.
Separate them out a little bit. And now I'm going to get a little more flare.
Look at that. Look how that comes alive here.
I'm going to get a little more flare. Now I'm going to take the whole skirt and I'm going to kind of comb it back. Try not to stick the hook in your hand. And if the skirt is excessively long, I'm going to trim it. This one I'm not. But if I do trim it, I'm going to trim it not like this. I'm going to trim it like this. Kind of give it a little bit of a profile. Okay? I know some of you are thinking that's ridiculous to be that anal about it, but
look at the difference, though.
You know,
look,
over
hold that up so they can see really see the difference of that, George.
You know, over 40 years of jig fishing,
the big
this
thing
right here, I feel makes a difference.
The big thing you want to understand is when a jig goes down, it hits the bottom, right, Corbin?
Right.
And you get this movement.
Yeah.
And by trimming that jig skirt, when it hits the bottom, that front really comes alive. It just really just breaks out there and comes alive and gives it a lot more attraction to the bait. You know, those fish really can kind of nose down and look at it. Look at the difference of that. Look how this top flares off right here. And now you have something that's really alive. It just wants to move. It gives it some profile.
Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this jig, I'm going to trim this weed guard a little bit. You know, that weed guard's a little long for my comfort zone. It probably wouldn't hurt me in the long run, but I feel it's a little long. It could be possibly costing me. You know, I look at it like you work so hard for that bite, you know? So I'm going to take that weed guard. I'm going to hold it like that. I'm going to take that index finger and I'm going to lay that hook parallel with that index finger, but down a little bit. 1/16 of an inch or so. And then I'm going to cut at this angle. So my guard's getting cut like this. And I'm going to cut till I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. Then I'm going to take the rest of those strands and I'm going to kind of back cut them. And what I'm trying to do there is shorten them up a little bit. So really, I've only got about half the strands protecting the hook. The other half are just kind of for body. And then I like to split that. And then I like to smash it. And what that does is that flares that weed guard. Protect this house.
Hold it down a little bit.
He's going to be flipping in the kitchen with that one.
Hey, look here so you can see what you're doing.
And that is ready to go to work.
Yeah. So as you can see, we did the first thing that we showed you guys on jig fishing is when you're punching your trailer, not when you're threading your trailer with plastics, but when you're punching the chunk style trailer, you want to make sure you fill up this area right here so that when the chunk or whatever pivots on the hook set, it doesn't get to the point and cover the point up and then punches into the point and into the chunk. So the first thing we did was we filled up this gap for those chunk style baits where you're just punching through them. The second thing we did is we took and separated the top from the bottom and we cut the top a little shorter, which gave you that really nice super nice flare on it. And then the third thing is, I think George didn't trim enough off the back, but he likes it like that. It's right on the edge. I probably would have took a little bit off, but that gives you that body, that different amount of movement on that jig. And now it's ready to go. You can do this ahead of time and have this thing all ready to go for you. And it allows you to get a lot more life out of the jig. But now you can see how that is. Now, what's cool about that? Yeah. See how that thing stays out of the way? Even when it flips around, it's not going to get into that point. It's not going to get into that point. It stays away from the point, and that thing, it keeps it from sliding up on that bait, but it gives you that nice point on there. So that's
deadly.
That's something that George and I learned from a pro very, very many years ago. And he showed us how to do that. Well, I want to say it was Denny Brower, but might have been another one of his old time school guys, but yeah, it was a jig guy.
Long time ago.
It was a jig guy. It was a hardcore jig guy. It was kicking ass at everybody. And he showed us how to do that. And ever since then, we've been doing that. And it just brings that jig to life. You know, it really brings it to life. It gives you more bites, and it's customizing your bait, which is very, very important.
So, you know, another thing about this whole jig fishing thing, whether it's cold water, warm water, spring, fall, whatever, every single day that you fish, there's a jig bite. You can't say that about a lot of lures. You can't say that about a topwater, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that about a crankbait.
Yep.
You can't say that about a lot of lures. There's a short list that you can say that about. But every single day of the year that you fish, there is a legitimate jig bite. More often than not, it's a quality fish jig bite. And if you're a tournament fisherman and you dedicate yourself to jig fishing and try to make that jig work on all of your events, more often than not, the 3 to 5 bites that you put in the boat each day with that jig aren't going to get caught.
Even if it's super tough fishing and you're trying to mix a jig in on your tournament day, it's well worth the time to put into that jig, because all you need is 1 or 2 quality bites to go along with, 3, solid fish, to put you over the top. And that's the thing, you tournament fishing is figuring out what you're going to need for the day and then concentrating on that. And a bait that allows you to get pushed over into the money, we want to say, get you into the money or into contention to win the tournament, is a bait like a jig. It's a big fish bait, especially in a lot of different situations. Cover, docks, wood, grass, that kind of stuff. It's all very, very key for that. No, what do you got, Nick?
Well, you guys bring this up. I love jig fishing, and new anglers want everything. They want a boat full of tackle.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you take a technique and you really dive into it and make it your own, jig is something that you can do that with.
Yeah.
Swim it. You can bring it across the top if you wanted to, crank it like a crankbait on the bottom, jig it, flip it. There's so many things you can do. Not enough people actually give it its due.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of them you can do with the same jig.
Yep.
Again, going back to this Matt Herron jig. This jig right here, say that's your jig. This jig would literally cover 80 to 90% of your jig fishing. This is a great swim jig. This is a wonderful swim jig.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful flipping jig. This is a wonderful skipping jig. Okay? You can take this jig in a 1/2 ounce on most offshore pieces of structure, and let's say a point with a little rock pile on it. So you got the structure is the point, the cover is the rock pile. You line up on it like you would with a crankbait. or a Carolina rig, you throw this jig on it, the same exact jig. So
Yeah.
you got versatility. You have a true year-round bait, which, again, you can't say that about a lot of baits.
Yeah.
And you have a bait that has a propensity for producing larger than average fish. So, you know, one of the things we always taught here at SFT over the years, decades now, is to aspiring anglers is, you know, take every season that you fish. You know, we're all coming into a new year, right? We have all these New Year's resolutions that people are going to be making, you know, a bunch of bullshit. I'm going to focus on fishing.
George.
Listen, pick a technique and master it for that year, right?
Yeah.
Pick a technique and master it for that year. Next year, pick another technique. And what I mean by that is every single day that you fish, try to make your chosen technique work. And at the end of the year, you're going to say, hey, man, I fished, you know, all 4 seasons with the jig. I was able to make the jig work in 36-degree water. I was able to make the jig work in 91-degree water. I was able to make the jig work in all phases of the spawn, all the sea. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can't do that with a lot of lures.
Yeah. So, Corbin,
Mikey.
let's talk color real quick.
Okay.
You know, is it important to have 57 different colors of jigs in your box?
Wrong person to ask. Yes. Yes.
So what is your color preferences and why do you have so many jig colors?
I mean, I try to keep it simple with a black or blue variant and a green pumpkin variant, keyword variant.
Yeah.
But then I can change the trailer or whatever. But it really depends on the time of year that I'm fishing. So when I'm fishing cold water, I agree with George on a lot, but one thing that I don't agree on is I like a lighter wire hook and I like to fish a jig on 12 to 15 pound test at the most.
Yeah.
Reason being in the cold water, I mean, I like a thinner line. I use a medium heavy, you know, I will
absolutely
like that to me works in terms of like for even for a bait caster on docks and whatnot. Now spinning rod, that's a whole other jig setup that we'll talk about, but with colors, I like to have, you know, your green pumpkin, your black and blue.
Yeah.
You got to have that. But for me, you got to have some kind of a green pumpkin variant.
Yeah.
And the reason why that is what color are leaves when they float down the river? What color is grass when it dies? Okay. It's dark brown.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're fishing clear water and there's a lot of leaves or dark brown, to me, the fish can't see it as well. So that's where something like, what is this? Oops. Or somewhere it's got like a green pumpkin with maybe a strand or two of chartreuse or a green pumpkin with a strand or two of orange. I like something that's got a little bit of flair to it, not necessarily a solid brown, because specifically in the clear water, a black and blue jig for me doesn't seem to be as productive in the cold water and crystal clear water,
right?
Generally speaking. So that's why I tend to carry more jigs. You know, and yes, you can adjust your trailer to that, but also there is something to that skirt with that flare when that trailer is sitting on the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me in my jig fishing world, where I'm not like the jig man to go to, but I love a jig. I catch fish on jigs. I keep it like you say, I like to have color, but I add the color in through trailers.
Yeah.
So in my box, I have green pumpkin and black and blue and black with blue flake. That's the 3 colors that I kind of throw in. That's not just green pumpkin. This color, you know, and the reason why we have this up here is because I went back and pulled it off the wall. This is my favorite color. It's got green pumpkin. It's got some dark green pumpkin in it. It's got a little bit of brown in it, you know, real natural colors. But then like this setup right here, this is a fantastic contrast setup.
Love it.
You see how that changes that whole bait just by the trailer.
Yeah.
So I like what Corbin's saying too. Like, okay, a crankbait guy has 4 3700s full of crankbaits.
David Fritz, he probably has like 7.
Yeah, but a crankbait guy has a lot of crankbaits.
That's right.
A jerkbait guy has a lot of jerkbaits because he's tuned into it. A jig guy like Corbin throws a lot of jigs. He's tuned into it, so he has a lot of colors. for guys like me who I love throwing it, but I'm not like a total junkie on really knowing that I should have a couple strands of chartreuse in here. I'm just not that guy. So for me, it's natural colors like this. It's very, your greens, and then I can put the accent color on, and I'll put crazy stuff on here. Orange, your orange type trailers, like a green pumpkin with an orange belly on it. I'll put straight green pumpkin. I'll put a black one on here. And then George's favorite right here is green pumpkin blue. He just absolutely loves this combination right here. And it wrecks him. So, the trailer can become your accent color as easy as, a skirt with a certain color. Now, being a tackle shop owner and a guy that's in a tackle shop all the time, I will promise you, I'm going to tell you this straight up front. There is jig guys that hunt the world over for a certain skirt color. Corbin being one of them.
Making myself.
And right, but even still, getting the tabs on these jigs, I'm telling you, there is guys that are so focused on one shade of this and one shade of that and a little bit of this in there, and we have 40 different shades of the baits over there, and they're like, no, I need this one. It's such and such a color, and of course, it's one you can't find anywhere, you can't get anywhere, but that's how specific some people get on jigs. And I'm telling you, these freaking guys are hammers, but they're tuned into that type of deal where they have confidence. How many times do I say confidence, George?
Well, and a lot of that color stuff is simply that. It's like if you throw like my all-time favorite jig color is a black skirt with blue metal flake in it. And then I'll vary the trailer from a black with blue metal flake to a sapphire to a green pumpkin. That's like my all-time favorite jig. Well, if I throw that all the time, guess what color I catch all my fish on?
That one.
So there's something to be said for that. But on this whole color topic, my take, I keep it pretty simple. I probably focus on, like Mike said, 3 main colors with some variations, and a lot of it can be done with trailer. We have all had circumstances in, let's say, a tournament or a particular fishing trip somewhere where, the color was the whole key. I fished the Potomac River a ton. And on a Potomac River, you better have some sapphire blue chunks. I mean, you can literally take your jig with let's say a black with blue metal flake chunk. You can literally go into a creek, let's say in May, flip a whole line of pads and get one bite. Take that black blue metal flake trailer off, put a sapphire blue trailer on, turn around, flip back over it, and catch 15 fish.
Yeah.
That's a color thing. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to make those adjustments. And, the question that we get asked a lot, which I think is really important to discuss, how do you know how to make that adjustment? Well, it's kind of serious. I mean, kind of easy. If you believe that you're around fish and you fish through that area and you don't get bit that well, make that adjustment. You have absolutely nothing to lose and come back through that area. If you start getting bit,
that's it.
That's it. That proves to you that was key. I've had this trailer right here. I've had that happen to me on the Potomac River, tidal water. I had that happen to me in a pretty big creek on Lake Champlain, pretty clear water. I've had that happen to me just locally on the river here. This trailer color will complement your jig selection. It's vital. Okay.
You can't put your boat in the water with
but it's not every day.
That's right.
But it's vital. Black with blue, vital. Green pumpkin, vital. Now, what's another way we can adjust those colors?
Dip and die.
Thank you. You better have green chartreuse. You better
Orange.
have orange, and you better have blue.
That's right.
And if you're only going to buy 2, chartreuse and orange.
Right.
Or red.
Now,
I got a love for red. You know that. I got a love for red.
Can I just tell a super quick story here in regards to that color thing?
You can
And-
tell as long as you want there,
and
Corbin.
really paying attention to what George said about paying, really dialing in your area. Guys, don't overlook the little things. So I was catching smallmouth offshore this summer and they were eating crayfish. Well, one spit went up on my boat and I was catching them on a tube or a Ned rig or rattle trap or whatever I was throwing at the time. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. I looked in my box and I'm like, man, I know they're going to eat a jig because I was catching them around grass and I knew I needed to fish a jig. So I didn't have the right color. So I went back to my lab, also known as the lower Cly, and I made up a jig and matched that perfectly. And all I did was add 2 blue strands to a green pumpkin jig because that's exactly what the crayfish looked like. And I had tried the trailer. It didn't matter. As soon as I put the blue in there, game on. I don't know why, but
oh yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's what you're saying, Corbin.
But that's dialed in, fishing a lot. The majority of people may not take that clue and say, oh, I need to catch them on a jig because the fish are on near that. That's just, something
Detail.
of paying attention to the little things
The
that the fish are
details.
telling you. And guess what? When it was cloudy, they bit the green pumpkin jig that was not washed out. Oh, sorry. Those jigs that get a little faded and lose glitter. still
In
have a
your
purpose.
lab,
Yes.
would you be able to tie a jig skirt similar to your Christmas suit?
Only for Oliver and I.
Well, oddly enough, he has a request, but
Yeah.
the jig has to have an extremely short shank on the hook and very short skirt cut. So,
Well, listen.
if you could make some of those up for him.
I mean, Oliver, I'm just saying, brother. I mean, we're on Tackle Shop Live. This is a family show, but I mean, I'll have something for you. You just let me know when you're back this way, and I'll give you my secret stash. Okay, I'll tie up some jigs for you. I'm not gonna say the colors. Me and George will get our lab together, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So if everybody could do me a favor real quick and like and share over here on TikTok, hit your screen a couple times, give it a tap. We appreciate it, man. Everybody over here on Facebook, like and share your this episode with all your friends, and also YouTube guys, just give us a like and share. That would really help us out a lot. We really appreciate that. What do you got, Nick?
Well, and subscribe as well. But
Yeah.
With that too, something that I've learned with jig fishing, I know we're talking cold water, but even in cold water, is the weight. I've taken notice so much how you can throw whatever size you're throwing, and next thing you know, you throw a heavier weight. You go to a half ounce.
That's key.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you get the bites you weren't getting.
Yeah.
Or it could be the opposite way.
We had a quick question on here, Nick. And a fellow was asking, what weights do you have? What weights are you throwing? What do you need in your box? That's a hard question to answer.
Has that changed for you guys like it has for me? I remember when I first started throwing jigs.
So just talking like, let's just talk like the first quarter of the season, now through the first quarter of the season.
1/4 to 1 ounce. Done.
I'm a 3/8.
You only missed one size that's known to mankind, so you should be good.
I'm a 3/8 and half ounce. That's what I throw.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a skirted jig, mid-size skirted jig, full-size skirted jig, 3/8 and half. In a finesse jig, like a little Luke Clausen or a little itty bitty, 5/16, 3/8.
So
that's pretty much it.
So what about like super slow fall jigs? I know a guy was asking on here about a super slow fall jig. Did you ever throw one of those?
I have. That's where I started. I started throwing an 1/8 ounce jig, and that's all I knew, and that's what I felt comfortable with. And every year I seem to like raise the bar to the next heaviest.
Well, first of all, what Nick said earlier is an absolute 100% spot on. In cold water, normally we always talk about fish the lightest jig you can get away with. And that's probably not a bad idea. But in cold weather, winter, cold conditions, going a little heavier helps.
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of those fish are laying on the bottom, bellies in the mud, and that jig comes thumping down.
Yeah.
And it's going to generate a bite. Okay?
Yeah.
So, let's just say 3/8 and a half is probably going to carry you most of your life.
It will.
But to Corbin's purpose, if you're flipping, punching grass, you're going to need a heavier jig. If you're super deep, you're going to need a heavier jig.
If you're in thick, nasty ass bushes.
Yeah. If you're, that kind of stuff.
On a couple day warm up.
If you're like fishing real shallow, like you get into like a spawn season tidal water situation on low tide when those fish are super shallow, you're going to want a few 1/4 ounce jigs in your kit.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
well, look at this. Like, here we go. We have him right here on the screen. Rick Clunn, one of the greatest fishermen of all time. I mean,
3/8 ounce.
3/8 ounce jig. Now he likes the peanut butter finesse, and he likes the peanut butter and jelly. That's his confidence jig. I mean, come on, Rick Clunn.
It's a great.
Is telling you that.
I mean, look at that color. I'm surprised we don't have one laying here. That is a
awesome.
great all-around color, right?
Yeah, I'm starstruck right now. I'm sorry.
Yep.
After hanging out with me all day.
But that's the thing. That the certain fall rate is something you really got to mess with. Pete Kalusic, for instance, he's always like, he's everywhere. Man, this guy is like, you know what I mean? He thinks of fall rate as a very, very serious topic.
It is.
Agreed.
It's a serious topic.
Agreed.
Because, not only do fish bite all the time, but they also don't bite all the time. And you have to trigger that bite. And his philosophy was if he's not getting bit on a bait that he knows he should be getting bit on, he's changing the weight to get a certain fall rate. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you brought that up, because when I brought up the fall rate, he's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give away where.
Yeah.
But there was a lake we went to where you couldn't use a heavy enough weight to catch the fish. If you
were you getting bit on the way down, or were they on the bottom?
It had to be on the drop.
Yeah. So in that case, it was a reaction bite.
It was a reaction.
But that wintertime fishing, that cold water, that jig is, when that big heavy jig is on the bottom, you're getting bit.
Right.
And I'll go back many, many years ago. I was on an epic bite back. It was actually on the Susquehanna River. I was guiding in a place called, Goldsboro, and it was a clay bank. And every one of these fish we caught, the mud was dripping off of them. You could see their scales were outlined in red clay mud. Red clay mud water was dripping off their tails. And we caught a few fish. There was a ton of fish there. It turned out there was about 4 days of hard fishing worth of fish there. But it required going up from an 1/8 ounce to a 1/4 ounce. And that was a tube head, which makes a big, heavy thump. And they were on the bottom, rubbing the bottom, pre-spawn. The sun was beating on that bank. That tube head was making that tube thump down into that muck and drag it, boom. So that's why I asked you, was it on the drop or was it on the dragging on the bottom?
For that, it was on the drop.
That was a reaction bite. Yeah, so you could have went to an ounce. Yeah, because they wanted that thing screaming past their head.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a whole, you know what? When we do our quarterly jig show again, which will be, springish time, of course.
Yeah, we'll get into all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Corbin, you got anything else to add to the jig
I do.
fishing phenomena that we're talking about here?
I do. because we talked about a lot, but we didn't talk about the spinning rod.
Right on.
And this is the time.
Preach, brother Corbin.
When the spinning rod jig is fantastic. Okay. And I'm not talking about a Ned rig jig or something. I'm talking about still a skirted jig. But if you're getting bit on, say a tube for smallmouth or a Ned rig or anything like that, they make these micro jigs, and Z-Man makes them. They're called the micro finesse shrooms. You will catch the bigger fish on the jig. You will not get as many bites, but you will catch the bigger fish. Okay.
So what are you talking about there when you're saying, like, when are you throwing these things?
I mean, really, for the local guys on the river, anytime.
Anytime.
I mean, but in that colder water, because again, you still have that skirt profile. You can still take and put, whether it's a hogs, okay, which has a lot of action to it, the crawls, which has more bulk to it, okay, or even just a regular Ned head on it. Oh, there you go, Mikey. Sorry. They get bit. And, you can also take that all the way up to the finesse jig. For those of you guys that like the Bitsy bug, they make an 1/8 ounce Bitsy bug. They make a 1/4 ounce, regular jig. I mean, all these little small jigs that maybe
little ball head.
It's tough to throw on a bait caster, or maybe you just like fishing a spinning rod and you're not used to throwing a bait caster. You can fish a jig on a spinning rod. I'm not saying I do a lot, but when I do, it is a small finesse style, basically a micro jig, and they catch fish in very, very cold water.
And as we said earlier in the show, you were going to talk about the micro jig.
Yeah.
And, you have the Z-Man style shroom. Missile Baits has a beautiful lineup of micro jigs in a standard and a football. And you do fish them on a spinning rod, and you do drop back down to a lighter line. You want that thinner diameter line. Now, you may fish braid to a leader, which gives you the flexibility. For instance, if you're in open water, rocky environment, not too snaggy in the winter, you can fish an 8-pound test leader.
That's right.
But if you take that same jig and that same spinning rod and you go to a lake with a bunch of wood cover or a marina type cover or a tidal water situation where you're fishing, wintering areas around piers and whatnot, you can take that same exact setup, cut your leader out, bang it up to a 10 or a 12.
That's right.
And you can deal with that cover as well. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the main reason why I throw this on a spinning rod is that hook right there. It's pretty much the same as a regular shrooms hook. Okay. It's not
going to withstand the power.
Right. Like, I mean, you can't set the steel with an 844 or even a medium heavy X Pride or anything like that. I mean, you need to use a spinning rod because, again, part of the reason why I'm using the light line is the easy hook penetration. That thinner wire hook is going to penetrate that fish's mouth so easy.
Corbin,
it's definitely a spinning rig setup.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. Are you that jig you were just holding up?
Yes.
Are you making modifications to that jig?
Not really. I mean, if I do, it's the weed guard, just moving it because right out of the pack, it's,
Yeah, there's such a dainty little jig.
Yeah. Now, I mean,
real finesse out of the pack.
Now, if you take if you're using a trailer, maybe the crawls, which is a little bit shorter, if that's getting in the way, I'll trim a couple skirts. But if I'm using like a TRD or maybe I'm using the hogs, which has a little bit longer out there, maybe I'm using something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want it to interfere with the jig itself. Okay, but you also want to mess with the trailer.
Yeah, and that's a great point on that hook. That light hook, you don't want a big heavy duty setup. First of all, the hook set is very easy.
Yep.
You're just a nice, you're not slacklining this thing,
especially if you have braid.
Yeah, and you can almost reel set and just kind of sweep into them. It's a little tiny needle hook that if you get too violent with it, you can flex it open. So, the spinning rod is a great point. You know what else that would be a great candidate for that? And we talked about a lot last week is the BFS setups.
Yep.
For those of you who prefer the casting tackle, and a lot of you guys that have been doing this for a long time are like, BFS. What's his name? Ed Bassmaster.
Yeah.
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 BFS. But now we're all talking BFS and we're all up on the BFS. And That'd be great for a micro setup like that, right?
That's right.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up tonight.
Absolutely.
All
I
right.
would have been really
We got
disappointed in you if you
We
did.
got one more little thing we got to talk about jig fishing, and then we're gonna get out of here.
We're going to morph.
And that's
We're gonna
a classic
morph.
there too, George.
And that is, yeah, absolutely. And that is rods. Rods, line, and reel setups for your bigger hook jigs and your spinning rod jigs. And your jigs in between. So, what rods would you say, to keep it so you don't need like 17 rods to go jig fishing, but for this wintertime fishing, that into that first quarter of the year, that first couple of months there when the water's cold, what jig size or what line size and what rod size and what reel gear ratio are you guys fishing?
For me, it's pretty simple. Okay. If you want to spend a lot of money, get a GLX or NRX. Okay. Probably a 7.1 medium heavy would be my first choice for the wintertime fishing. A 7.1 heavy for all around, or maybe you go 7 foot heavy for all around. If you want the best bang for your buck, 7.2 medium heavy X Pride, done. I mean, and I'm fishing a Chronarch 8-to-1 and 12-pound line. Generally speaking, 15 if I'm going to be fishing a lot of docks and stuff like that, and I'm not fishing trees and thick bushes. That's it. Done.
George,
What he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a medium heavy for my finesse type compact jig. I'm a heavy for I fish that Matt Heron jig on my heavy.
Yeah.
And I would fish that Clausen jig on my medium heavy. I would have, if I'm around a lot of docks, like Corbin said, I'd be fishing 15 fluoro. If I'm fishing more opener, more of a rocky type environment, in this cold water, I'm cutting that back to 12. You got to understand, as we often talk about it, when you get into the dead of winter, that water is much clearer. It doesn't have the ability to suspend those particles in it, so it gets much clearer.
You can cast it further.
It's all different. So back her down, hot rod.
Well, and George, I think one thing we can agree on is it's not the weight of the jig that's going to dictate what we use rod wise. It's actually how thick the hook is.
Yeah, it's the size of the hook,
the wire of the hook,
the size of the hook, and to a certain extent, the weight of the jig. I'm not going to try to throw a 1/4 ounce jig too much on a heavy powered rod.
No,
but yeah.
I am a 7.2 medium heavy for a lot of my jig fishing. For at least medium heavies, these fast taper medium heavy, they're super freaking powerful.
Or extra fast.
Yeah, yes. They're super powerful. You can get a lot of your jig fishing done with a 7.2 medium heavy. Cover you from 3/16 quarter 3/16 on up through no problem at all. And maybe on the lighter jigs, that quarter 3/8. In some situations, I'll go 12, but I'm just running 15 fluoro. I don't even mess around with anything else. 15 fluoro gets it done for me. Spinning rod wise,
I was going to ask.
You need a little horsepower. You need a little bit of horsepower, but you don't need to have because these hooks are small. They're small hooks, and I like a good extra fast taper. Medium extra fast in the Loomis, plenty of horsepower. Some of these rods, you have to go to a medium heavy. You got to be careful because there's no industry standard. Some of the Shimano rods in that medium is too light. You got to go to a medium heavy, so you got to be careful, but you don't need anything real stiff, but you need a good sensitive rod for jig fishing with the bait caster and the spinning, because it's a touchy feely thing and you need to feel.
What do we say, Mike?
You got to feel them to reel them.
Yep.
Stick the money in the rod. Spend as much as you can in this category. Now, guys, we talk about value for the dollar all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of techniques that you can kind of shave a little bit of money off and get a lot of value for a $99, $149 rod, and it's going to be fine for a lot of baits. This is not one you want to skimp on. If $149 is what you can spend, spend it. But make sure you spend the right $149 and get the right rod for it.
Yeah.
A good quality tackle shop will help you with that decision-making process. It's very, very important. We like to say, listen, put a $150 to $199 reel on, and then spend the rest of the money on your rod as much as you can, because you got to feel it. It's very, very important. And reel wise, I'm open to anything. I like 7-1. Very important to pick up that line quick. I fell in love with 8-1 also.
Oh, absolutely.
It's definitely something that's happening for me. I was totally anti 8-1 for a long time, but now I'm kind of catching up on all that.
Hey, Mike, when you brought up the spinning setup, was that your setup for the micro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I fish everything on a bait caster except for those, micro jigs, and I have a 852, 7-1 852 that you can fish anything on. And that's probably the rod that I would pick up for that. I'm just saying, for some people, you have to go to a medium heavy because these rods are too light, in the spinning. But
or if that's what you prefer.
Yeah,
I like the medium heavy. I mean, if you're talking Loomis numbers, I'm 803 all day long.
Yeah.
On a spinning rod.
Yeah, but I can get away with a 7-1 that because that's a 6-8.
Right.
And I like a 7-1, and my length with the 7-2 is going to, with a 852 is going to pick up. But now I can really flick that jig up underneath there and get a nice cast out of it. I feel like that. It's all
Personal preference.
It's all personal preference. But
well, with the braid,
you get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that critical.
Yeah, I like fluorocarbon for that light stuff. Straight line fluorocarbon.
All right, Mike. Yep. Let's put a bow on this. Let's put a Christmas bow on this package.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say a couple things here. Number one, Corbin, it was great to have you back here, man. It was, we couldn't do this show without you and without the suit.
I couldn't miss it, man.
I know, bro.
I mean, I'm trying to be around a lot more. We
well,
I'm here.
We get it.
I'm here tomorrow.
I know.
And Saturday.
Well, Corbin's going to be here tomorrow and Saturday. If you want to come in and talk to Corbin about fishing, he's going to be here tomorrow and Saturday, working hard.
Suit on, or?
I mean,
he might make a little appearance
I might hang this thing up for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But and I also like to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Guys on TikTok, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate that. And also you guys, your OG guys, man, my OGs over here on YouTube and Facebook, appreciate it. Oliver Nye, thanks for chiming in. Very, very great to have you on board. And tonight we had Rick Clun on board here tonight, giving us some great tips. Thank you, Rick, for stopping in.
Nick, you know how I got a hand grenade for you every week?
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, we got to have the hand grenade.
I literally have a hand grenade for you this week. Uh-oh. Every week I try to come up with what we call the hand grenade, which is a nugget of greatness. And it could be related to whatever. This week, it's a hand grenade. A magnet fisherman in Kentucky. You know what magnet fishing is, Nick?
Oh,
I absolutely do.
I absolutely would love to do that.
Remember we talked about the guy that got the 2 Barrett sniper rifles off the bridge in Miami?
I do.
He's been one-upped. Magnet fisherman in Kentucky caught not 1, but 2 from different locations. 40 millimeter live grenades.
What the hell's going on?
Well, this is one hell of a magnet fisherman.
Man.
Let me tell you.
What is going on?
Well, he was targeting pre-spawn magnets.
He saw him on side imaging.
He had him on a drop.
He had him on a drop.
And he was able to duplicate it in 2 different creeks.
I mean, what the heck in Kentucky? What are they doing down there?
Well, listen.
Driving around, tossing.
They had to call up the... No.
War's over.
No. They had to call up the Fort Campbell Ordnance Disposal Unit.
Oh, you couldn't keep him?
They warned everybody in the area that there was an explosion going to occur because the way they take care of these things is they detonate them on site.
Yeah.
So my man is heaving out his magnet on the Marne River, and he pulls up a 40-millimeter live hand grenade. Thank God he called the authorities. And he's like, goes home, tells his wife the story. The next time he comes home, he's like, "Hun,
I did it again."
You ain't gonna believe this.
I got another one.
She's like, "I know you were down there at Sparky's place having a round with the boys." He's like, "I swear to you, hun."
You're not gonna believe this.
I got me a good one. And he caught another one. And of course, the first one was on the 4th of December. This just happened. And the second one he caught on the 18th of December.
That's crazy.
So
that's crazy.
If you
funny,
if you get that funky tick on your jig in the Fort Campbell, Kentucky area, you might not want to set the hook.
Too hard.
That would redefine boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny George brings that up because there was a young lady in here the other day, and her husband comes in all the time. She was buying him a Christmas present, and she said, "Yeah, I'm trying to get more involved with my husband's fishing, and I'm just not much of a fisherman, but I like to go out with him." So I got a magnet to go magnet fishing with him. While he's fishing, I can magnet fish. And the guy's like, her husband's got, finds out about this, and he's like, "What are you gonna do with that?" "Oh, I'm gonna fish while you're doing that. So she's out there on the back of the boat, whizzing this thing out there, kabloosh, and he's up in the front of the boat looking back and going, "Really?" She's like, "If you want to spend time, I want to spend time together. This is one thing I want to do." So she's magnet fishing with him out in the boat. I thought that was hysterical.
So far, she caught a piece of rebar and a bolt.
Yep, a rebar and a pipe. And I said, I said, you catch something.
So
stick with it.
I don't know if we're going to start bringing some magnet fishermen on for a segment. So far, we have 2 Barrett.
Yeah.
50s off of a bridge in Miami.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they weren't shooting alligators with them.
Yeah.
And we got 2 live 40-millimeter grenades in Kentucky. And on that note, I think we should possibly wrap this show up.
Let me tell you something. This is the Christmas season. I know everybody's getting ready for Christmas. And one of the things that we like to tell people around here, in the last minute, and this is just sidebar, just for helping some people out. You don't have to worry about a certain color jig or a certain color plastic or whatever, or a certain type style rod. One of the best gifts that a fisherman can get is a gift card. And for you last minute shoppers, you can go on to sfttackle.com and you can order a gift card. You can either email it to the person. Maybe it's not close to you and you want to get them a present. You can email our gift cards to anybody and then they can buy online from us, or you can print one out and you can take it to the house and you can wrap it up and you can give it to that person. So that's the last minute thing there that you can really do. We're in crunch time right now. If you're sitting there, you're like, "I don't know what to get Johnny." I really don't know. That's something you can definitely do. The other thing I want to say is this is the holiday. This is a very busy time, but just remember what the Merry Christmas season is all about. The birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. Make sure you take the time and think about that a little bit. But more importantly, spend some time with your family. Have a great, fantastic holiday season. And if we don't see you next week, a great new year. But I'm telling you right now, you guys are the best. We love you to death. And until next time, we'll see you on the next Tackle Shop Live.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
I met you on a sunny day. Right there, you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day, you called me up. You told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down, knowing how you're blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny game. You know just what I feel. Please tell me our love is real.